This week on Barbell Shrug, we talk to Strongman competitors. Yarr! All right, we're back with Barbell Shrug. Episode number insert here.
Yeah, he's not sure.
We're not sure because we've been filming podcasts back to back to back out of town with really cool guests. So Doug and I are still here at the Arnold Sports Festival in Columbus, Ohio. We have our guest Steve Trippy,
Wu-Tang.
and Brett Somerville.
All right.
You can just call
It's
him
on
Big
your
Sexy.
jacket. I can read it. I
Nice.
just met him like an hour ago. These guys are strongman competitors competing at Worlds. Brett, you finished 10th, and Steve, you
12th.
finished 12th in the world. Real quick, guys, before we get into discussion, make sure to go to the Facebook fan page and click like. Go to barbellshrug.com and enter your name in your email in the newsletter so we can update you when we have new podcast technique wise and daily BSs and all that noise. So make sure you take care of that. Go to iTunes, give us 5 stars because you know you love us. Show the love. And Chris Moore will give you, was it mental hugs, mind hugs?
Virtual hugs.
Virtual hugs.
high five, something like that.
Yeah.
Chris Moore's not here today. Again, Chris is going to be back on the episode next
Dude,
week.
he's so upset because we've been hanging out with so many cool people and he had to stay home. That's what happens when you have a real job.
He is pretty bummed about it. All right,
Yep.
Steve, tell us who you are and what you do.
All right, well, like you guys said, my name's Steve Trippy. I'm a competitor in the 175 class of Strongman. They call it Strongman Fitness Men's. Just finished up.
That's the weight
competing-
class?
Yeah, 175 pounds.
Okay.
They call it Strongman Fitness because I guess we're supposed to be fit, be able to tie our shoes as well as be strong. So,
So Strongman's not just for people that are 350 pounds?
no, there's actually a whole bunch of weight classes. The big ones are the 175s, the 231s, and then heavyweight. But within that, you have other weight classes like under 200, 265 and under, 300 and under. So really just about anyone can do it. We even have women's classes, and a lot of people don't even know about that.
You even let women do it?
Yeah, you'd be surprised what some of the women can do.
There are some beasts out there.
Yeah, the Women's World Championship for the fitness class was actually this weekend as well. So we got to watch some of them compete up on the stage earlier today.
And you guys compete on Friday and Sunday?
Yeah, Friday and Sunday. I didn't compete on Sunday. I didn't make the cut to go through to Sunday. But Brett here did, so he just actually finished competing a couple hours ago.
Hey, Brett, can you tell us about yourself a little bit and how this weekend went?
Yeah. Name's Brett Somerville. Just got done competing at the Arnold Amateur World Championships. Finished up day 1 in 5th place, and then went on to day 2, which was today. Had a little bit of a rough day. Topped it off as 10th place, and it's time to go back to the chalkboard and start all over again.
What's your weight class?
300 plus.
What do you weigh?
Right now about 320.
Okay, big boy. You look like you're maybe like 220.
Wow, thank
No,
you.
I'm
Thank you. Yeah, I just got done with my spray tanning and my
He's going to be
price
going
picks.
on for that for months now.
Yeah.
I can't believe you just said that.
Is that a pretty comfortable weight for you?
Uh,
Is it a good blend between being heavy enough where you're strong enough and light enough where you're fit enough to do the medleys and whatnot?
I think it really depends on the type of show you're doing. I've been up to 340. Statically, I was definitely strong. Going into this show, I decided to crank up the conditioning, which helped a lot on day 1. Can't complain about that. Day 2, a little bit, static strength wasn't there. Body just wasn't firing. No excuses, but, we'll find the perfect blend sooner or later.
So most people are probably familiar with Strongman just from watching World's Strongest Man on TV, and that's probably the only association they have with the sport for the most part. Even myself, like aside from going to the Arnold every once in a while, like we had some Strongman competitors in our gym for a while, but before that, growing up, all I ever saw was World's Strongest Man. So is the type of stuff that you guys are doing or did this weekend really similar to what we or most people would have seen on TV?
Yeah. What you see on TV is what we do basically. The weights are adjusted. There's different. You have heavier shows, you have lighter shows, but in a nutshell, yeah, it's basically the same. You're gonna pick up a stone, you're gonna probably push a truck, and you're gonna pick something heavy off the ground. So,
So I know one of the big misconceptions with Strongman is that, obviously from the name, they assume that you're big, strong people, and especially in your case, you're a 300+ pound guy. But they don't realize that conditioning is a huge part of it. I know it's something that Steve talks about, that you have to be in good shape to be a strongman competitor. It's not like powerlifting or weightlifting where every event is like 2 seconds long or 4 seconds long. You have medleys that last up to a minute long, and it's full max effort the whole time. You got to actually be in shape.
I think the big misconception too is just we sit around eating cheeseburgers and we do one lift here, one lift there, where the training is a lot more intricate than that. You have to have the conditioning involved. You have to eat a lot of whole foods, but it has to be good foods. You have to eat that lean red meat. You have to eat that rice, the cheese, the whole milk. You don't want to put the junk calories in your body. And along with the conditioning and the diet and the heavy training, that's when everything really should be tied up with a bow and pretty good.
What does your nutrition look like? Is it different in the off season versus, right before competition? I mean, you described what your nutrition a little bit there, but you can get a little more detail.
For me, I'm pretty consistent year round. I want to stay between the 5,000, 7,000 calories a day, which is usually 3, shakes and, 4 meals. Post training, you take in more carbohydrates, more fats, good fats, peanut butter, red meat, and so forth. And other than that, it's just really trying to eat probably every 3 to 4 hours, and drinking a whole lot of water. Got to keep the joints lubed up, and that's really about it. It's pretty basic.
How about you, Trippy?
For me, it has to be a little more targeted because I compete in a weight class, like I said, 175s. I'm already pretty close to the top of that. I tend to walk around at about 185. Leading into the Arnold, it was a little different. Leading into other contests, a little different. Like Brett mentioned, it depends contest to contest. For me, I'm a big fan of carb backloading because it allows for a rather flexible diet approach, but it still really helps with my recovery, even if I'm cutting weight. But like leading up to the Arnold, I combined a strong carb backloading plan with like carb front loading.
Is that
Can you
something?
describe what that is?
Is that what Kiefer describes, or is there? I know that. He wrote a book about carb backloading, which is popular with strongman and powerlifters right now. Was that an approach you were taking before that, or is that a general term used by a lot of strongmen?
It's similar. I've taken a lot from Kiefer. I have his book. I have his Carb Night Solution book. But another guy that does it, I tend to follow his approach because I think it's a little more healthy, I guess, is Jason Ferrugia's Renegade Diet is a form of carb backloading. Basically, rather than just pounding in whatever fats you want and pounding in whatever carbs you want, you try to focus more on vegetables and lean cuts of meat during the day and your steaks and things like that. And then post-workout, you're a little more targeted. You're not just pounding down cheesecake.
Well, what are you eating I'm assuming, and from what I know, you're eating a lot of carbs post-training. What do those carbs look like?
So a typical day, I'll go through a whole day for you, like on a training day. I tend not to eat breakfast because my work starts pretty early. So I'll go in, I'll work for a little while. My first meal is usually around 9, 10 o'clock, and it's usually a higher fat meal. I tend to try to get those healthy fats. Basically a lot of lean meats, a lot of protein, all the way up to training. Once I train, the very first thing I do is I have a post-workout shake, and that's my initial source of carbs. Afterwards, it's pretty much like a pasta or a rice or something like that with dinner. I prefer the healthier carbs. I don't eat a lot of sweets except around a contest, but that's just because you need the fast energy.
What do you consider like healthier carbs?
Like I said, the rices, the pastas, yams, potatoes, things like that. And I know there's issues with calling them healthier because it all depends on your approach to nutrition, but basically the whole foods. And the strongman diet's going to be a lot more whole foods. Like Brett mentioned, you can't just do the general calories for strongman. Like a powerlifter, as long as they're getting in calories, it's okay. For us, body composition matters a lot more.
Is that because you're doing more total work? You say your volume's higher, and that's probably why you need more higher quality calories? Are you saying you're better than powerlifters?
Oh, no, not at all. I'm not as strong as a powerlifter, but at the same time, do I think a powerlifter could match me for reps? Well, if they ate right, I think that's what it comes down to. We have a lot of events that are for high reps. We'll have 60, 90 seconds, and we have to go all out on a clean and press. Now, doing a clean and press for 90 seconds flat, that's tough at a heavy weight. If you're carrying around a lot of extra useless weight that isn't doing anything for you, it's not going to be good, even if you're a heavyweight competitor. Now, if you're a heavyweight powerlifter, you can get away with that because you only have to do one rep and then waddle into the back room. For the lighter weight classes, for powerlifting and especially Olympic lifting, you'll notice they follow a lot cleaner diets than, say, their heavyweight counterparts. But even our heavyweights and strongman tend to eat a lot of whole foods.
Okay. Well, what would you guys consider to be, here's a question someone asked on Facebook, which do you think is more important, the physical strength or mental strength, and why? I mean, because obviously with strongman, there's a huge mental component there because it does last longer than just a few seconds.
I think that's the mental part of it's actually huge. I think you have to go into something knowing it's going to hurt. You have to kind of, what personally happens with me is I stroll up to the implement. Before I pick up the implement, everything gets real quiet, get tunnel vision, almost see nothing but black until that, 10 seconds or 60 seconds or 90 seconds is over. And then when it's over, it all starts coming back to you real slowly. You start hearing the crowd, you start hearing the music, and then it's over. And that's kind of how you have to go into it. You have to be just as mentally strong as physically strong.
I think I got to agree. Mental. A good example I can give you is a yoke walk. You can get under 700-pound yoke. And you can have the strength to do it, but if you start to walk and it waddles and it knocks you over, you have to have the mental strength to immediately pick it back up. And if you're not mentally strong enough, it doesn't matter if you're physically capable of doing it. If it throws you off for a second or two, that second or two can be the difference between first and fifth.
Yeah, I actually competed in strongman meets a couple times in 2011. And, my background is mostly weightlifting and CrossFit. And one thing I noticed about strongman that was very different than what I had competed in before is with CrossFit, you can always do the weights. I mean, if you're a relatively strong guy, none of the weights are going to be so heavy that you can't get a single rep. And in weightlifting, you're choosing the weights that you're going to try to compete at, and you're going to lift as much as you can. But you pick what's appropriate for you. But I remember showing up, and it was a 650-pound yoke. And I had never put 650 pounds on my shoulders before. And it was one of those things where the mental toughness there that was required was different than the other sports. And that you were like, well, shit, I just have to pick this up. And no matter how hard it is, or, yeah, like you said, you get a little bit of a wobble and you start to fall to the side or something like that. Like, you have to fight it no matter what. You can't choose to go lighter, or you can't choose to, take a break whenever you want because you've got 60 seconds to get as far as you can.
And the whole time it's crushing you.
Yeah.
The whole time it's crushing
you. The weight. If you've never picked that much up before and that goes down your spine and you're trying to walk, it's a mind fuck, really.
Well, you gotta have that switch. That's just something I always say. You have to have that switch. You can be holding babies and kissing babies right up till you get to that implement. Then when you get to that implement, you gotta flip that switch, and until that event's over with, that's what you just gotta do, and you gotta grin and bear it.
Have you guys ever? I know for me, I encountered a card deadlift where myself plus most of the field couldn't get a single rep. Have you guys ever encountered something where you're standing there just kind of shaking your head like the weight's just too heavy?
Well, you actually saw me do that this weekend. If you saw, I don't know if you caught my medley. I know Doug caught it.
Yeah, we got some footage of it. We'll probably clip it in.
Leading up to
nod. Yeah.
we had a medley where we had to carry a sandbag, carry a 230 keg, carry a 250 keg, and all of this we had to carry up to this wheelbarrow that already had weight on it. and then pick the wheelbarrow up and run back. Well, I was watching other competitors go, and they were getting to the 250 keg, and by the time they'd run the first 2 implements, they were already gassed. So I kind of moved a little slower, took my time with it, but leading up to that, no one had moved the wheelbarrow. Now I got it, but another example is this past Nationals. We had a card deadlift where they threw, just out at the last minute, they were like, oh, let's throw another 200 pounds in the trunk just to make it interesting. And up to my turn, no one had moved it. So I'm sitting there shaking going, well, I got to get at least 1 rep.
Right.
And I got that 1 rep, and
Nice.
then that mental toughness strikes in. You go, well, I got it once. I got to get it for another. It was a max effort lift for me. It was probably a 1 rep max, but I ended up pulling out 3 reps. That's just mental strength. I wasn't strong enough to do that. I just kept pulling, and I'm talking like 8-second reps.
Yeah.
So a car deadlift certainly looks cool for the crowd, right? It's very showy. You're lifting a car, and that's very novel. But it's not the same as doing a barbell deadlift.
No,
Right?
No.
So how is it different? Explain that to people that don't know.
Well, I mean, for me personally, like how I feel, I think the car deadlift is great. I think it's great for the crowd. I think it's even great for the competitors because it's something different.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's really about that barbell. You got a good strong barbell deadlift that's going to carry over to that easily. I mean, I've encountered plenty of people that can pick up anything with side handles, but the second they get up to that barbell, all of a sudden they grow a vagina, and you got to. I mean, I'm not against it. I mean, I enjoy it. I like I said, I think it's great for the crowd. But if you ask me personally, I'd rather hang with a whole bunch of guys who can pull a lot of weight off the floor with a barbell.
So for the car deadlift, though, is it being on a pivot where it's not going straight up and down? It's kind of rocking on an arc. Is that?
Yeah,
is
you
that
can lean back
something you have to
into it.
factor in.
That's a scientific question, so I'll leave that to Trip.
Okay.
With it, it's exactly like you said. It's on a pivot, so and it's also locked into a range of motion. So whereas with a regular barbell, you got to worry about balance and everything. On this, you don't have to worry about it. So you set your feet a little further to get your posterior chain into it, and then at the same time, as it starts to come off the ground, you can lean back. You start using your quads. It's, in my opinion, more total body than a regular deadlift. It's at least more pressure on all the muscles.
So you can be leaning back, and you're not going to have to take a step because you're not going to fall over because it's not going to move.
No, as long as your feet are positioned properly. That's actually what a lot of amateur competitors mess up, is they don't set their feet properly so that they can lean back. And what happens is, as the thing starts going backwards, because they set their feet like they would with a regular deadlift, it's out in front of them, and now they're leaning forward instead of leaning backwards. So they're basically balancing on their toes. And as anyone that lifts knows, you want to drive through the heels.
Yeah, I noticed when I had to go do the car deadlift, I'd never ever done it before. It was 100% novel, and yeah, it was one of those things where like I was adjusting. You had a 60-second clock to do as many as you could. It's like I was constantly moving my feet, trying to figure out which one was. I was looking at the other guys. There's like one other guy in my weight class that could actually move it, and we're like trying to figure out what he was doing that was different. Well, what he was doing is different. He had a deadlift suit on, so that kind of helped.
What
I
I'll
didn't
bring
have
up
that.
there is
Oh,
if
no,
for any
really?
listeners.
He's one of those guys.
What's that?
Holy crap!
Oh, we're going to start talking about gear?
Oh my gosh!
Oh no, I'm not gonna. I'm
Oh,
just
he
not
had a-
gonna buy gear for one competition.
Oh,
I've
yeah,
never
that's-
worn gear before, so like
Oh, you're
I-
totally raw. Huh?
I just don't know, and I've never been interested enough in competing at that level in those sports to learn how to. Because I understand, like I've worked with powerlifters that wore gear. I put it on them, I helped get it on them, and all that kind of stuff. And I understand that you basically have to learn how to squat again. You have to learn how to deadlift
It's like
again.
its own separate skill
Yeah, it's a
set.
whole new thing,
It's definitely.
I've never
different
invested the time
ballgame.
in doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything against it. It's just
Oh, okay.
I'm just not gonna. Yeah, I'm not gonna be like, oh, it's not fair. It's like I just didn't have it. But that was that made a difference. He was one of the guys wearing a suit, and then the guys that weren't definitely couldn't get it.
Couldn't
So-
get it, yeah.
But if you wanted to win, you should have showed up with a suit for sure.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
I don't
Yeah.
actually think a suit helps as much on a car deadlift simply because it's more quad dominant pull, being side handle. What I will bring up, though, for anyone that's potentially listening to this and they might be interested in Strongman, is if you're ever in that position, you show up to an event, you haven't done it, ask someone. Strongman competitors, like even my own competition, even the guys that I'm fighting tooth and nail, if I went to them and I said, hey, look, this event's coming up, can you help me out? They would stop. They'd give me the shirt off their back. They'd show me everything they could. Strongman's one of those sports that it's really very, very, there's a lot of camaraderie there. You can walk around. You can have never done an event. You can, today, on Friday rather, I was missing equipment because I had an hour to pack for this meet because I got out of work late before my flight.
Those sons of bitches.
Yeah. I was missing equipment. I'm walking around. Hey, I'm talking to my coach. I'm going, hey, I need Olympic shoes. I don't have any. And one of the other competitors, Brandon McDonald, just walks up and he goes, hey, what size are you? You know, if we're not going in the same heat, we can share my shoes, you know, if they fit. This is a guy I'm going to be competing against. Him and I are going for these top spots. He's one of the top competitors in the world. He ended up taking third, you know. And here he is offering me his shoes without me even asking him. That's the kind of people most strongmen are. So if you're ever in that position, just ask.
There's a couple things that are definitely going to happen at a strongman show. The camaraderie is amazing, and it seems like everyone's got a thick chick. So those are probably the two biggest things.
I won't say everyone.
Both are a plus.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so take us through the events that you guys did this weekend. Explain what happened. Kind of, I know you did really well on some events and not so well on some other events. That some things didn't go according to plan. Kind of walk us through the weekend.
All right, I'll go through my first 4 events because they're quicker than Brett's. I had a 225 2.25 inch thick bar clean and press. That's usually a pretty good event for me. I'm usually hitting about 5 or 6 at 225.
It's called the axle.
The axle.
Okay.
Yeah, we tend to, if you ever want to train for it, I recommend 1 3/4 inch inner diameter pipe. You just put some collars on it and cut it to 7 feet. That's how we train. It's usually a pretty good event for me. I'm a decent presser because I'm fast and explosive, but I was going into the show with a torn rotator cuff. I got my first rep, and like I said, I didn't have Olympic shoes that fit, and I kind of lost my footing, almost broke my knee off. So they didn't count the first rep. I ended up only getting 3, so that set me back. The second event was the yoke walk into a sled push. This is where I really shit the bed. I'm usually really good on yoke. There aren't a lot of people that have ever beaten me on it. And at the last minute, they changed my lane, changed my yoke to a yoke that wasn't set up for me. There's different heights. You'll see all the competitors are different sizes. I had to pick up about...
And they normally take your measurement ahead of time. It's not like
Exactly.
you can just change it on the spot.
Exactly, but they changed mine on the spot. They moved me to a different one. They didn't have the bolts in tight enough, so I picked this thing up late because I just jumped into it as they were saying go, and it wasn't tightened.
And for those of you at home, Trippy's not a big thinker. He's just a doer, so he just jumped right in there. And
well, you know,
I'm kidding.
when Mike Johnston of the ASC is yelling at you, competitors ready, you know, I know him. If I'm not under that yoke and taking off by the time he blows that whistle, I'm not getting credit for it. He's well known for that. So I just got under it and I just did it. I finished the yoke pretty fast, but by the time I got to the sled push, you know, we got that marbleized floor. It was still wet. I was just spinning my feet for a few minutes before I finally got set up and moved it. It was a 600-pound sled. So the yoke was easy for me, even though it was messed up. The sled cost me some time, and that should have been my event. That should have been an event I did real well on, and like I said, I shit the bed. Third event was an event I hit exactly what I wanted to. It was a deadlift medley. We had that axle again, 435 pounds was our first deadlift. Then it was a 585 straight bar. For those of you that don't follow Strongman, that's currently 40 pounds over the NAS 175-pound class conventional deadlift record, which is like 545 or something. So we had a 585 bar, then a 730 frame, basically a side handle deadlift. And then we got to that car deadlift you were talking about, and we were supposed to pull it for reps. Well, I didn't have a 585 deadlift when the events came out. I had to train. I went on a deadlift specialization routine to bring my deadlift up for this. So I wanted to hit just 1 rep straight through because I knew that'd be points on the board. And I'm not a strong deadlifter. I'm one of those guys that's faster than he is strong. You guys talk about, you know, strength not being the most important thing in strongman. Well, I'm the epitome of that. I'm not very strong, but I'm fast. I've got good endurance, and I make up for it in technique. Now, so I hit one rep on each of those within the time limit and just called it there. The last event was a medley. I'm pretty good at medleys because I have good conditioning, and you guys saw that. You'll put up the video. It was I think a 200-pound sandbag. They changed it at the last minute. It was supposed to be a keg. a 230 a 230 keg carry to the sled, and then a 250 keg carry to the sled, and then basically pick the sled, or not sled, wheelbarrow, and then you pick the wheelbarrow up and you run it across the thing, and that was basically my show. So I had a pretty good finish on the medley, but it wasn't enough to bump me back up to the top spots, and only the top 4 got to go to day 2, which was really where my good events were. But I had time to train, I just didn't make it.
What were the day 2 events then? You made it to day 2, right?
Yeah, I mean, my day 1 was a 325 axle. That went as planned. The yoke was 950. The sled was 700. I think I took second in that overall.
On the yoke, how far did you get and how much time?
It was a 950 yoke.
He had about an 11-second yoke run. He doesn't know
know
that, but I was timing him.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but that went good overall. Then we had the deadlift medley, 635 axle, 715 barbell, 830 frame. Then the car for reps, that went, I got 9 on the car to finish that. That was up there. And then the wheelbarrow, again, that was up there, probably top 5. That was, really good day for day 1. Then day 2 happened, and it was a 210 dumbbell. And I wowed the fans with 1 fucking rep on that. Then
one rep of what? What do you got to do with it?
You got to clean it and then press it over your
Is
head.
it a circus dumbbell? Big handle?
Yeah.
One
just
hand.
a big dumbbell, yeah.
Are you not allowed to use the other hand, or is it just one hand only?
Yeah, just one hand only.
Thick
yeah.
handle?
It's
Yeah.
2 hands to clean, 1 hand to
two
press.
hands.
Yeah, 2 hands
to
to
the
clean,
shoulder.
1 to press, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I hit 1 rep on that, and that was pretty embarrassing. Then we got to the old Husafelt, and
Ooh.
yeah, that's...
I love the Husafelt.
Really,
That's a man maker right there.
No, really, that's a horrible fucking event.
I wish when that started getting used, I was like, that's the worst event ever.
Yeah,
if you want to talk about mental strength,
yeah,
I think that's the one.
yeah, that is pretty bad. I'd almost want my nuts wrapped in a rubber band and do that.
That's the one where our buddy Jay was carrying it and passed out carrying it.
He passed out.
He wasn't breathing. He was walking and he just passed out. His head didn't hit the ground because he's too big for his head to touch the ground when he's laying on his back.
It's true.
I just saw him on Facebook right before we posted. He ran an 1,100-pound yoke for 50 feet or something like that, which is pretty
That dude,
heavy.
that dude picks up like big yokes and sprints.
Yeah,
That's awesome. That's
Ridiculous.
awesome.
What was his name?
Jay.
Jay Holder.
I think I've heard of him.
Mm-hmm.
He does have a decent yoke.
Yeah, he's a good yoke. So
Yeah.
sorry, interrupted.
Yeah.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
no, not at all. Nothing really to interrupt. Then we went to the 410 stone to 54 inches, and I promptly laid a fucking goose egg on that. So,
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was pretty much, yeah.
Why do you think that happened?
It was a high bar.
You know what? There's just really no excuses. My goal was I tore my bicep in January, last January. My goal was to qualify for nationals. I did that at the 7th month mark. Then I wanted to qualify at nationals for the Arnold. I did that. Then I just wanted to make it to day 2. I thought that was realistic. After what happened day 1, I really thought I had a decent shot. And then day 2 happened, and just absolutely no excuses. Just body wasn't there, and had a rough day. But just come back stronger. That's about it. And just real quickly, I'd like to thank Dion Wessels. And Mike Johnston and all the helpers and, everyone else that's just, supports the sport. And the competitors were awesome, every single one. Just real quick, and I think it's, Strongman's come a long, long way since I started, so I definitely like to see that.
Yeah, they do
Very
a
cool.
good job putting on events. They put ours on last year for nationals.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
just they really are. They're really precise. They're really crisp. They're really
They're real fair too.
and
It's hard to come across competitions where it seems like it's fair across the board. I feel like it's pretty fair.
Yeah, they really do it, and they have to deal with a lot. There's
so
a lot
much.
on their plate. Between equipment moving and everything else. So I just gotta give them
And
a real big
strongman
shout out.
competitors being so emotional.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. We'll be crying with Dion yelling at us.
Actually, I'm about to get some hand lotion, some tissues, and rent a notebook.
Yeah. Listen to some Lorena Mechanic.
Yeah, Adele.
Oh, there we go.
All right, guys, let's take a break. When we come back, we're gonna hit up some more of these questions that people posted on Facebook.
Yeah, and I also want to talk a little bit about your guys' actual training when we come back too.
Sounds super.
Outstanding.
Welcome back to Technique Quad. I'm Doug Larson with the Barbell Shrug podcast. You can find us at barbellshrug.com. A little while back, we did a 3-part series on core stability training. We talked about anti-extension, resisting this hyperextended low back position by contracting our abs and our glutes and pulling ourselves back into a neutral pelvis, which is something that we're going to further touch on today. We also talked about anti-lateral flexion and kind of trunk or spinal rotation, keeping ourselves in a neutral spinal position at all times by using our trunk musculature to resist movement rather than produce movement. So today what we're going to do is we're going to dig into resisting hyperextension just a little bit by talking about front levers and ice cream makers and all those kinds of cool variations you can do on the rings. So first, if you don't know what a front lever is, it looks like this. If I'm holding onto the rings, I'm in this position where I'm contracting my abs, I'm squeezing my butt, my pelvis is kind of rolled back into me, my body's very straight, my shoulders are tucked together, I'm externally rotated, and I'm in this perfectly horizontal front lever position here. So this is a hard position to do on the rings. Usually what we do is we usually either bend one leg or bend both legs, and we practice in this horizontal position, but with slightly better leverage because we're bending our knees and that lever arm of our legs isn't quite as long, so it's a little bit easier. The other way that we can scale that movement is instead of starting horizontal and flat, we can start vertical, and then we can put this is my head and this is my feet. I can put my feet just barely out in front of me, and then as I get stronger I can put it more out in front of me, further and further and further until I'm all the way flat. Okay? So here's what that looks like on the rings. What you want to do is first, you need to be able to go upside down or invert yourself on the rings. So I'm going to start upside down like this, and then I'm going to try to get where my lower legs are facing the wall in front of me, and then I can eventually put one leg out, and that's about all the farther I'm going to go on the front lever. So one leg out is pretty tough. Might be able to hold there for a little bit if I'm really putting out some effort. Both legs out all the way flat on a front lever is very, very difficult if you've never tried it before. So that's what I want you to start with. Start with both legs tucked, one leg out, and then if you'd like you can try both legs out, and there's some other variations that are mixed in there as well that we're not going to talk about today. We're just going to stick to those 3. The other way, again, is to start upside down, fully inverted on the rings, shoulders back, externally rotated, then point your toes, just kind of lean forward a little bit. Okay, what I'm doing there, again, contract my abs, squeeze my butt. I'm staying all the way straight, shoulders back in a good position. My elbows are kind of pointing up to the ceiling. I'm like this, I'm not like that. I'm not bowed and hyperextended, which is a very common thing to see. A lot of times people won't rotate at the shoulder. What they'll do is they'll hyperextend their back to get their feet out in front of them. So that'll kind of look like this. They'll be here and they won't move their shoulders at all. They'll just go like this. Okay. That's a terrible position to be in. That's exactly what we're trying to work not to do. We're trying to work on adding load to this hollow position where I'm contracted here, I'm squeezing my butt, and I'm not hyperextending at my back. The more I let my feet fall without rotating at the shoulder, the more I get into that position that we're trying to avoid. Okay? So, again, if you start inverted, you're only going to have to go maybe to like a 20-degree angle or so in order to get a pretty good load, and try and work up to like a 30-second hold. Once you can get that, you can try to go lower and lower and lower as you improve over time. Some of the other more dynamic variations of the front levers include things like tops pulls, where you're starting in a pull-up position and then you're going all the way to a 100% inverted position and then back to a pull-up, which that kind of looks like this. If I'm here, I can start at the top of a pull-up, keeping straight, leading with my feet just a little bit. I can pull all the way to inverted, and then I can stay straight and go right back to the top of the pull, and then right back to the inverted position, trying to control on the way down, and then ending up at the top of the pull-up. Now, the other variation that we like to do is called an ice cream maker, and that looks kind of like this. The ice cream maker, I'm starting at the top, and I'm going to kind of get I usually get a little bit of a swing. You don't necessarily have to, but the more of a little bit of a swing that you have, the easier it'll be. Then you're going to push yourself all the way back until you are 100% flat in that full front lever position, and then immediately you're going to swing back to that full pull-up. You can do this with a false grip or without a false grip. I'd say false grip is probably a little easier because it makes your arm a little shorter. For the moment, I got a little bit of a medial elbow thing going on, so I'm not going to use a false grip, but I'm going to encourage you to try it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the top of the movement, keeping that hollow position. I usually get a little bit of a swing to start with, and then I push myself away until I'm all the way flat. And then you can kind of rock into a little bit of a rhythm. Okay. You can rock into that little bit of a rhythm. If you try to resist it on the way back and you don't go all the way to a fully extended elbow, then you're going to kind of kill that rhythm and you're going to fall, or you're just going to, what usually happens in that case is if I'm here and I resist, I go halfway. Usually when I try to pull back up, I only make it about halfway up on my pull-up, and that kind of kills that little bit of a swing that you get. If you get that swing correctly, you really don't have to be that strong to do ice cream makers. It's really about letting your feet pull your body up, and then your body pull your feet up, and vice versa. Your center of mass really isn't going up and down, so you're not really pulling that hard if you get that rhythm correctly. So those are kind of some fun ways to play with that resisting hyperextension training method. If you have questions about that, again, you can go to barbellshrug.com and ask us some questions. We make a new daily BS or technique WOD on your new question. See you next time.
All right, we're back with the Strongman dudes. Yeah, so I wanted to hit up some questions. Did you have some questions about training, Doug?
Yeah, and we went through the events, and we talked earlier about how strongman isn't the same thing as powerlifting. It's not the same thing as weightlifting. It's a completely separate sport. So do you guys train like powerlifters? Like, do you do traditional weight training, or do you just do, do you train just like the events? How do you train? What do you do? What do you do if you want to be a strongman competitor?
My training has evolved year to year. And basically what I found for me that works the best is, Monday is usually a squat day. Mm-hmm. Wednesday would be an overhead day. Mm-hmm. Saturday would be some type of events. I train events a little differently. I like to do things uphill, mm-hmm. Yoking uphill, farming uphill, sled drags uphill. I also, this time around, I implemented a lot more conditioning. Mm-hmm. If that meant just picking up a keg and just going the distance I had to go with it, mm-hmm. that's what I did. If it meant running a heavy yoke and then grabbing farmers and going after distance, mm-hmm. That's what I did. And it's really an evolution. How, back in the days of old strongman, a lot of them were just power lifters or really strong Olympic lifters.
Mm-hmm. Bodybuilders, even.
Bodybuilders. Lou Ferrigno, Franco Colombo, the world strongest man. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, you can't do that. You can't do just 5-3-1, or you can't mm-hmm. do just the cube method or whatever fancy schmancy thing that's out there. You got to listen to your body. You'll learn, mm-hmm. and everyone will find their training niche, basically.
Mm-hmm. You said you had a squat day and an overhead day, and then kind of an event day.
Yeah.
On your squat day, are you squatting first, squatting heavy, and then doing more strongman specific stuff afterward?
If I'm out of season, I'll rotate. It'll either be a heavy deadlift mm-hmm. to like maybe a lighter box squat. Mm-hmm. I'll have that type of rotation. Leading up to this show, basically what I was doing is I was trying to do actually conditioning before I even squatted.
Okay.
So what I do is maybe do some truck pushes, mm-hmm. 3-4 sets, then go in there and try to hit, not a maximum box squat, but, maybe 3 reps. And what I do is I try to do about 4 to 5 sets of 3 reps with that. Mm-hmm. Something within that 85, percent range. That wasn't going to kill me, but still keep my hips powerful and stuff like that, because, you got to go yoke on Saturday, or mm-hmm. you got to do some type of moving event on Saturday. So it's really just checks and balances.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Steve?
My training depends on what I'm training for, whether I'm training for anything at all. I actually have a distinct off season and on season. In the off season, I like to do a little more volume. I like to, I'll probably hit more accessory work, trying to hit my weaknesses. pretty much all my training is total body. Strongman's always total body. There was
the ultimate total body fitness system.
I wouldn't say ultimate. I mean, that sounds like something I'm working in. I'm working in the shake weight
I do
and
typo.
yeah.
Shake
I'm not keeping up with Billy Blanks here, but at the same time, like I think you can do an upper lower for strongman. I think you can do total body. I don't think you can do body part splits anymore. There were guys that were for a while, and you'll notice those are the ones with the injuries. Because you can't teach your body to work in isolation and then do a 2-day strongman contest. Where
That's
you're
more
using...
of a power lifter's approach. Usually, is doing a split, right?
More bodybuilding, I think. Like they'll want to hit tricep extensions and then skull crushers and then something along those lines.
You can hit upper lower similar to a West Side style,
Right.
and do strongman just fine. But if all of a sudden you're hitting like 6-7 different moves for biceps, you're teaching your biceps how to work without your back. All of a sudden you're gonna tear a bicep. When we have a lot of bicep intensive events,
Is that what happened to you, Brett? You too many bicep curls.
Actually, no.
Can you tell?
You know what?
How did you tear your bicep?
I tore my bicep pretty freaky. Most people do it on a tire, an axle, or a stone. I actually did it on a block press. I was picking up the block. It was a 300-pound block. I went to clean it, and it went from maximum tension to no tension, and the tear happened. And but also too, like I learned from that. Like I haven't curled, I haven't done a tricep push down in over a year, and I learned that to do these full bodies, and people always want to bring up their CNS, and to do all that, you don't want to burn your body out doing things that are just totally irrelevant to what you're training for. You need to, if you're going to be doing farmers and stones and keg carries, your biceps are going to get plenty strong, they're going to get plenty thick, they're going to get plenty big. You shouldn't have to sit there with a 20-pound dumbbell doing preacher curls.
Yeah, you got to focus on the things that give you the biggest bang for your buck.
Yeah, exactly.
So we got some questions off Twitter.
Yeah. Well, these are off the Facebook fan page, actually. What is it that you love about what you're doing, and what keeps you motivated and coming back for more day after day?
For me, I think it's just a battle with myself. I mean, not to sound cliche. It's just I want to beat myself. I don't look at competitors' lists. I don't really comb the internet to see who's doing what. I mean, yeah. I mean, sometimes if something really freaky, I'm going to YouTube that son of a bitch.
Right.
You know what I mean? Other than that, it's just as long as I'm progressing and I'm getting stronger and my placings are high, that's what I care about. And, and also too, I think what drives me too is like my brother, my training partners, my family, I don't want to let them down. And, I think that's kind of my approach to things. Motivation.
For motivation for me, I got to say the same thing as Brett. I like to better myself. I like to constantly improve. But at the same time, you guys know me. I'm into shiny things. I really like metals. So it's kind of cool to leave with like a nice samurai sword or something. What I love about it, though, is that, as you guys know, and I've mentioned many times, I have lifting ADD. I love lifting to death, but if I'm doing the same, when I was powerlifting and doing the same 3 movements, well, I hated the bench, I didn't even really like the squat that much. But, okay, so there's one movement that I really like, and then I'm doing these other 2 all the time. Well, I got bored doing 3 movements. Well, in Strongman, we're doing seven movements a contest, and
you don't
those
know what
movements,
they might be.
Yeah, I don't know what those movements might be until 3 months out. Some contests, and I love this concept, it's starting to really gain traction, is these blind contests. They'll tell you, hey, we're going to pick out of these 15 events, show up ready to do anything, and then they're going to pick 5 of those.
I like that.
Yeah, I love it, because then you see who the real athlete is. You don't see who really, this guy trained really hard on these 5 events and got good at them. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's who's going to shine when it's a surprise. That event that maybe no one has encountered before, the athlete's the one that can figure it out the quickest.
Exactly. It brings the athleticism into it, and that's really what I love about Strongman. There's athleticism, there's endurance, there's cardio, there's pain tolerance, and I'm not a 1-rep max guy. My 1-rep max deadlift is around 600 at 175, That might seem high to a lot of people, but for a Strongman competitor, most of them are hitting in the mid-6s. Some of them are hitting close to 7 in my weight class. There's guys out squatting me by 100 pounds. But if they can't move, if they're not athletic, if they can't adapt to a new event in a matter of weeks, I'm going to beat them.
It's about being well-rounded. Me personally, I hate the one-trick pony. And I've mentioned this to my training partners. You know, you can have one event. Okay, great. You're a great presser. All right, that's one event. You got 4 more events, or you got, 6 more events. And, that's what keeps you on top, is being able to go into a show and saying, listen, all right, I got 6 events. Maybe I'm not great at all 6, but I'm really good at 4 or 5 of them. And that's what's going to carry you, not just I have an amazing overhead, or I have an amazing yoke, or I'm just a deadlifter. And I think that's what separates the good strongman from the, I'm just going to post a picture on Facebook of me doing my one awesome event,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any events or movements that you hate? Like, what's your favorite one, and what's the one you hate the most?
I love the circus dumbbell. I've hit over body weight on that. I've hit 185-pound one-arm press.
That's legit.
That's entirely athleticism, though. It's, okay, I have to get my whole... When you're holding something, it's uneven on the body. You have to stabilize it, and then you have to throw all your leg power through your core up into that shoulder to throw it up into the air. And then you have to time it just perfectly. So you drop under it in time, lock it out, but you're immediately tight so that you can stand back up with it. That's athleticism.
Core stability on top of that.
Exactly. So that's my favorite event. It's probably the one I'm best at. I'd put myself up against anyone in the world in my weight class and in most other weight classes for that event. I also tend to love the yoke. In terms of events I hate, I try not to hate them. I'm not...
He's a lover.
Well, yeah. as soon as you hate it, it becomes tougher to train it. It's that mental thing. Brett here hates the Hosafil. Well, ask him how many times the last training cycle he trained the Hosafil stone. It becomes really hard to really put your effort 110% into it. I guess I was never big on farmers, so I tried to hammer those until I got good at them. In this event, we didn't have a farmers, but we had that wheelbarrow. Well, I blew that away.
I find that people tend to not like the events they suck at.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, you got
or
people
the
just wanna train
opposite.
what they're good at.
They suck at the events that they hate, which that I think would be even more specific.
What?
Well, that's where you separate.
You said they hate the events they suck at. I think you're going to suck at whatever you hate. I think it's the opposite. You're cause and effects backwards.
I get it.
Wow.
Could you just
like y'all are on the same page.
Did the
Have another sip of wine.
We had a discussion about this the other night. Was it the chicken or the egg that came first?
Genetically speaking, it was the egg, because when you first recognize a new species in terms of evolution...
Really, you had to go down there.
In terms of evolution, they first recognize it when the DNA is completely comprised. So it would be the egg stage. I'm sorry, Mike.
Well, we just thought that we had the wrong chicken.
We could shut down the internet. we figured everything out.
Oh,
all right, Mr. Scientist. I know you used to work for a company, or you interned with a company in Memphis, which is when we met you, that dealt with a lot of low back injuries, a lot of
Nuvasive. They work specifically with athletes on spinal reconstruction surgery.
And we got a question on Facebook or Twitter asking about how to train around low back injuries as a strongman competitor, as a strength athlete. And I know you had worked for that company, and you've also dealt with that as an athlete. And so kind of talk about how you came back from a low back injury, what your low back injury even was, and kind of just talk about that whole topic.
Well, I blew out my L5-S1 at dinner. I turned sideways and sneezed. This was roughly about 3 weeks after setting the USAPL Pennsylvania State deadlift record in the 148s. I blew my back out sneezing. So,
lucky.
Absolutely. And I attended a lot of rehab. I worked with 2 different physical therapists that I couldn't really afford. I had MRIs done, and I met with all these guys that said, oh, stay on the stability board, do this, do that. And I tried that for about a year. I started interning right before I interned in Memphis with a company in Virginia. And about halfway through that, I gave up on the physical therapy. And I said, you know what? My back's always going to hurt in the mornings. I'm just going to have to deal with it. I'm going back to lifting. And what I realized was the stronger my back got, I'll say the stronger my trunk got, the entire core musculature, the less my back hurt. And it really came down to stretching the muscles that needed to be stretched. For me, if my hip flexors were tight, my back was arched, and that put even more pressure on it.
A lot of people have the misconception about, oh, my back feels tight. What can I do to stretch my back?
Oh, no, absolutely not. If in probably, I want to say up to about 90% of cases, it's the opposite. It's the hip flexors that are tight, pulling you into anterior pelvic tilt. That's going to arch the lower back, and if you have a lower back injury, that's going to put the stress on them. Also, the other side of that is if you have tight hip flexors, if they're tonic tight hip flexors, chances are your glutes aren't firing properly. Well, now your posture is even more screwed up. So for me, it came down to fixing that, which came from I started squatting again. My hips loosened up, and I started stretching my hip flexors again, and my hips loosened up. And then I started doing speed deadlifts, and the first thing I could do was really front squats. I couldn't back squat for quite a while, and that brought up my core strength. And as that got better, well, holy shit, my back stopped hurting. A big change. Other than that, the only other big change, and I don't want to jump on the bandwagon. I don't know if it's still a bandwagon because this was a few years ago, but Louis Simmons reverse hyper. You guys had one of those, and if you remember, I hit that thing for 20, 30 reps every warm up, every workout.
We still have it.
Oh, outstanding!
Yeah.
I think that made a big difference. If this is coming from one of your lifters working out at Faction, definitely, I'm a huge fan of that reverse hyper, both from a strengthening standpoint and a rehab standpoint. But really what it came down to it for me, and I think it does depend on the back injury, is strengthening the muscles that need to be strengthened, specifically the core musculars, the obliques, the TVA, even the rectus to a fair degree, though most people don't have a weak rectus abdominis if they've been training for a while.
Of course, the erectus.
we did do a 3-part technique WOD on training specifically for core stability that relates really well to what you're talking about. So if you're in the audience and you're listening to this and you haven't seen that yet, go look that up. We did an anti-rotation, anti-lateral flexion, and an anti-extension technique was training specifically for core stability. So we can give you some good examples on kind of what he's talking about. Maybe not the whole picture, but it's a good starter for it.
So Brett, we never did get to your love-hate
What?
movements or events.
I can answer that one for him.
I think we already know that he hates the Husafeld.
No. I mean, all right. Listen,
Front carry in general.
If I have my Achilles heel, it's probably the Hus. But other than that, like really everything else, I can't say I hate it. I really do like it. I think it's just different challenges. Everything challenges differently. But yeah, that's about it. I'm really catching a lot of Britney Spears here with the Will I Am in the background.
Yeah, we can hear it, but it won't pick it up on the
Oh,
recording.
okay. I was just curious.
It's picking up some random radio
Yeah,
station, but nobody else can hear it in the audience.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we actually shut the podcast down the other night. We're like, shit, this is gonna be on the thing.
Yeah.
And it ended up we couldn't even hear it.
I'm not complaining. A little Britney in bed.
I got a really good question here. Is there a different approach to training and culture from other countries? Where's the biggest growth in the sport happening?
Wow. I think just from what I've seen, I think America, it used to be the Europeans dominated a lot.
Merca.
And now you have the Americans really coming through. I mean, if you look at Worlds or you look about, when we go over there, you guys got, we got Jenkins, we got Poundstone, we got, Ortmeyer for a while, Shaw. I mean, we've got, up and down. I think the growth in I've just seen it just from competing for as long as I have, how tough the competition has gotten at nationals or just to qualify for a show. You could usually just kind of walk into a show and knew okay, there's my qualifier. Can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I think it was a picture of Shaw standing next to Poundstone that I saw on Facebook the other day, and it made Derek Poundstone look like he wasn't even that big.
No, Brian Shaw is the world's largest land mammal, so.
Oh, yeah.
And again, he's a very nice, humble guy, and
so nice.
That just goes back.
How
to
big is he roughly?
Well, I don't know if the audience can really zoom in on my quad, but that'd basically be like one of his
quad.
One of his. If you could really see the hamstring separation,
he's wearing pants, and he thinks people can see his quad.
That's base. I mean, I'll roll them up for you guys, but we got to keep it like PG-13. But that's basically the size of his forearm.
Yeah, no, Shaw's.
He's 440. I want to say 6'8".
So
Yeah,
why
not fat, not like 440 like you'd think.
Yeah,
He's 6'8", 440 pounds.
What would you
biggest
say?
human being on the planet.
What would you say the reason is for strongman growing in the United States probably more than the other countries.
I blame Dion.
I think Dion. I really do. I think Dion. I think there's a lot
Yep.
more promotions out there. Like, I mean, before too, you would only have maybe 3 shows on the East Coast, and you know that might be it. Now you'll have 3 in one weekend.
So you think that just
So-
that having more events is going to
More events because
think-
more people are shown the sport. More people are involved in sport, and that's what it needs.
She has a whole system in place that just breeds competition. I had this jacket that I'm wearing, I had to fight tooth and nail just to earn it. Now, at other countries, they just show up at a nationals, and, if they do okay, hey, look, you're on Team Finland. And this isn't like a shot at Finland, or I don't know what the other countries do. But for the most part, no other country has you have to qualify for this show and then qualify for that show, and then maybe you get an invite to this show. And that whole system, including our amateur to pro system, just breeds competition. And so just to get to that stage, just to get to that
you
Arnold
could have-
stage for America means you're qualified. If you look at our class,
Yeah.
the top 4 guys were all American.
It just makes me curious because, I mean, like, I love weightlifting, and that's one of the biggest, the USAW is always like, how can we grow the sport? So maybe we should look at a sport like Strongman where
Ask
it
Dion.
is growing,
Yeah. Yeah.
So why do you think these other countries have strongman like so prevalent? Like you mentioned, Finland, Norway, Sweden, Latvia, Lithuania, like all those countries kind of in that same little block of Northern Europe seem to gravitate towards strongman.
It's a culture. I actually train with a guy, Savar Sigurstensson. He's a very good friend of Benny Magnussen's. He was Hafthor's handler here for the Arnold Classic Pro. He's friends with Stefan Solvi Peterson, and all of these guys are a very tight-knit community. Like when I say he knows all 3 of those guys, I'm not saying, oh, they all train at the same gym. I mean, they would travel hours just to train with each other. And in Iceland, it's a culture. It's a culture of strength. His wife lifts. His kids are already way into lifting weights, and they were raised in America. It's just, we're Iceland. We're strong. So at least from that, I can give that perspective that it's very important to them to not be physically mediocre. They want to see what their bodily limits are. I don't think that's the case in America, except with athletes. Most non-athletes don't ever see that perspective.
Yeah. All right, I want to ask a couple questions from Gregor. I don't know if you guys follow All Things Gym, but he
Absolutely.
he hosts a really awesome blog if you haven't checked it out.
allthingsgym.com.
Yep, all things thing. Oh, yep.
That yes.
Word.
Gregor's a great guy.
He posts a lot of our
You
stuff.
really are his yang, aren't you, Doug?
He asked, how many spare biceps do you travel with? But seriously, would you change something about the sport to reduce these injuries? I guess the bicep injuries.
Listen, every sport has, a thing. I mean, you have tennis elbow, you have football players with knee problems, you have weightlifters with back problems. I think once you accept that there's certain risks and rewards to everything, I think that's what it's about. When you're talking bicep specific, there really isn't. It's either going to go or it's not going to go. Like, I've been down that road, and I asked the doctor, I think 5 times. I looked at old training logs. Did I do something that was totally abnormal or stupid in my training for my bicep to tear? And I look back at it, and maybe I could what if a couple things, but, doctor went in there and said it was time it was going to go, and I just think that's part of the sport.
Shit keeps getting heavier. If you look at the weights they did in World's Strongest Man in the 1970s, and then you watch my weight class, dude, the 175s doing weights, we're right up there with them. As shit gets heavier, things get more competitive. People are going to hurt themselves. Brett said, I tore my bicep on a 310 block press. Well, let that set in. This is a block. It's a steel rectangular shaped, I don't know what the rectangular cube is, but it's that thing. It's awkward. It's ugly. And it's not something a normal person would see and say, hey, I wonder if I can put this over my head. That's a heavy weight to be putting over your head, and shit's going to go. It's going to happen. At some point, I'll probably tear one of mine.
Yeah.
But I'm going to compete like it's not until if I let that fear in the back of my mind, I'm not going to train hard enough. So I'm going to train like it's not a possibility until it happens.
All right, last question is also from Gregor. Also, how do you feel about the limited number of events in modern strongman competitions compared to the creative events of the past?
Limited?
Yeah, I don't think really it's limited
Limited.
at all. I think if you're talking
I
about,
can name 30 right now.
yeah,
Just
I think what he's
Flash
referring,
style.
I think what he's referring to is like, the old days when they would put a backpack full of bricks on your back and tell you to run around the track quick, or if you saw refrigerators as a yoke,
Well, I think like when I saw is they were, they had to
wrist rolling.
yeah, things like
Yeah,
that.
but I think over time we learned that phased out because that really wasn't a strong man. That's not proving that you're strong. Running around with 300 pounds on your back and a book bag and going around the track doesn't really do anything. Now, if you're talking about, picking up a 400-pound pair of farmers and running with it, that's something a little different. I don't think that's limited. I think it's how the public views it. It's tough for the public to look at 800 pounds on a barbell and think that's heavy. But if you see a car deadlift, the public goes, wow, that's a car.
exactly.
Right.
And that's the difference between the athletes and the public. And, that's
You
just
think
how I
maybe you
think
need a
about
certain
it.
level of sensationalism for it to be
At
popular?
the bigger shows, absolutely. You want those keg tosses. You want that wooden log press. You want the car deadlift. You want the things that a person can look at and go, holy shit, that's a log he's pressing overhead. If I give them a barbell and they walk in and they see that, oh, well, how much does that weigh? Well, sometimes they don't even ask what the weight on our thing is. I did an expo 2 weeks before Worlds out in Virginia. And there were some bodybuilding guys, there were some CrossFitters, and by the end of the expo, we had guys gathering around, and I was still doing warm-up runs on the yoke. I only had about 5'10" on the yoke, and I did a sprint, and some guy goes, wow, that's heavy. He had no idea what was on there, but he could look at it, and he could go, oh, that's heavy.
That's a good point.
It's the visual appeal. They like seeing kegs getting thrown. They like seeing stuff like that, and maybe that's what he means when he says limited, is those are the events people see. But in any show, I can go on nastrongman.com, come to upcoming contests, and look through, and every contest will have different events. And if a promoter, if he wanted to promote a show and he wanted a different event, said, hey, I'm going to have this event. Cool. If you invent a new event and you want that to be popular, throw it in a show. Tell someone that's posting a show, we'll do it. If it's a good show and I like the events, I'll show up and I'll do it.
So there's no standards for
No.
which everyone needs to, you can't.
No,
You can only
the
choose from these
difference.
20 events and that's it.
Yeah, no, there aren't standards.
They can get as creative as they really desire.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'd like to see, maybe something a little bit more, maybe wheelbarrow full with some big-chested girls. And,
Side calf pose.
I think that would be a crowd pleaser for the most part.
I like where you're going with this.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But like Steve said, it's how the promoter wants to do it, the creativity involved, also, what type of competitor he's going to get for that show. But I think as a whole, man, Strongman's growing huge, and I think it's definitely going places.
Cool. All right, we're going to wrap this one up. I'll give you guys the last word here in a second. Doug, you want to plug? What's your plug?
Yeah, I'll plug Simple Strength since Chris Moore's not here to do it for me. Simple Strength is Chris Moore's seminar where he talks about how to get stronger, how to program for strength. He even put an extra video on there just the other day talking about how to warm up for a 1-rep max, which was a great addition to that product. So if you're interested in Simple Strength and learning about how to get stronger and how to program for strength specifically, you can go to barbellshrug.com, click on the shop, click on seminars, and click on the Simple Strength product and read all about that product for more information. Steve, what do you got, man? You got something to plug?
I guess just trainstrongman.com is our home gym. That's where I train at the Morehouse Manor. Anyone in the Raleigh, North Carolina area or ever passing through wants to try some events, you're welcome to join us. But that's where we post. In the future, we'll be posting instructional videos for anyone that wants to get into the sport. They're gonna be very basic. They're not gonna be like top level tips. It'll just be like, hey, you want to learn how to log press? This is how you log press. You want to pick up an Atlas stone? This is how you do it. Because that's what we find is the biggest issue in strongman is people don't know how to get started if they don't have a training crew. So if you're interested in that in the future, trainstrongman.com is gonna have some stuff. I'm wearing the T-shirt, I guess.
Zoom in.
Boom. They're not going to be able to focus on it with this perfect chest here. I don't even bench press. So I don't know why I'm
You're just
saying
so
that.
Ripley, it's hard to read the words.
Exactly. Those abs really.
The deep cuts.
Exactly. Like a road map over here.
Oh, are you serious?
So, Bray, you got
gotta think
anything?
about
I just got a few global strongmangym.com.
Oh yeah, Hans.
That's Hans Pyramid at New York City. He's got great things. I'd also like to plug Joe's Driveway. That's where it all started, up there in New Paltz, New York. And just like to thank the ShopRite Red Meat section, and
Boar's Head Strength.
Boar's Head, and the wifey and family and everyone else, and all the support and the great competition. That's really about it, man.
Excellent. All right, guys, don't forget to go to barbellshrug.com, sign up for the newsletter, check out the shop to see if you want to.
To see what, Mike? What do they want to do in the shop?
They might want to get a T-shirt that says Barbell Shrugged on it, or they might want to check out some of the seminars in there.
There you go.
All
That
right,
place
guys.
has horrible customer service.
That's true.
The
No.
T-shirts are usually on back order, so they take a little while to get there.
It's funny you bring that up.
Yeah, right. That's just because we have a lot of people buying T-shirts, which is awesome.
That's right.
That's
All right,
right.
guys. See you later.
Thank you.